Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us this town hall meditation. Please take a second to look at the upcoming events. We have a special event for members, a member appreciation event here on this Thursday. Lama Surya will be reading from an upcoming memoir, so this is a really special event. Check the website for registration and details about the time. Today we are blessed to have Lama Roger joining us and leading the meditation. Lama Roger is an author and professor of psychiatry at Irvine, University of California, Irvine, and he's joining us from beautiful California today. So it's a special event and welcome. And yeah, so here we go. Lama Roger, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. And welcome everyone. That's good. Now I can see everyone, and I'm going to put it on gallery so I can just see everyone here. Wonderful. What a gift to be together. Let's just take a moment to appreciate what a miracle and a gift it is to be able to be together like this. In the times of the Buddha and for centuries after, one had to walk for days or weeks to find a gathering to be with, let alone to find a teacher and a way of accessing the tradition. So all we have to do is turn on Zoom. So, and here we are. So let's just take a moment to delight in our good fortune. Take a moment to open to gratitude. And gratitude, such a wonderful perspective and emotion, because it opens the heart, makes us vulnerable to love and joy, reduces barriers like anger and defensiveness, and just allows us to be here happily in this moment. Oh. And as we allow ourselves to feel our good fortune and the joy that comes from recognizing it, let's recognize that how wonderful it would be if everyone could be as blessed as we are. And how wonderful it would be if we could be the instruments for other people's good fortune. And out of that recognition comes a desire, a heart desire that others be blessed and fortunate, just as we are. And allow that feeling to well up and just have its place in your heart. And recognize that you have discovered that the Bodhisattva aspiration is not, as we think, something we have to strive and struggle for. Although, yes, we can purify, we can intensify, we can do practices, but at bottom, it's a recognition of what we most deeply want. So may our time together serve our welfare and awakening the cultivation of all beneficent qualities of heart and mind, and enable us to be ever more effective instruments for the welfare and awakening of all. And let's just sit briefly. What I'd love to do today is just have a brief sit and then introduce a new practice. And so let's just take a moment to relax. Take a few slow, deep breaths. Breathing in and letting the air fall out. Breathing in and just letting the air fall out. And as we do, notice that with each exhalation, which is a spontaneous letting go, there's a tendency for the muscles around the chest and shoulders to release and relax, and for that relaxation to spread out into the arms, up into the neck and face, and down into the abdomen, the pelvis, and the legs. And allow your vision to look softly ahead and slightly up. Aware of the body, and also aware of the environment, 360-degree environment, open awareness. So we're opening to a soft, open, global awareness. In which we allow experiences to arise and pass away, to come and go. Without any need to struggle or strain with any of them. But what we want to open to is not just awareness, because one can be awareness and kind of vaguely aware. We want awakened awareness, awareness which is sharp, alert, bright. So we have the capacity for intensifying, clarifying, deepening our awareness. And so right now, become more alert. Not as an effort or struggle, but just allowing yourself to be really alert. So that awareness is sharp and clear and present and bright. And when you allow awareness to be really bright and sharp and clear, then awareness tends to notice thoughts and fantasies and images and catch them quickly and easily, and doesn't get lost into them. It's not a struggle. It's not tensing. It's alert, bright. Clear, really present with the totality of experience. And one of the interesting things we discover is that in most cases, it's always possible to be even more alert. So I'm going to count to 3. And on the count of 3, intensify your alertness. 1, 2, 3. Really alert, sharp, clear, translucent, diamond-like, present to all experience. This is awakened awareness. This is the doorway to Rigpa. Rigpa is just a thought away. Not that the thought takes us there, but that we recognize the thought and don't get caught in it. What underlies it is this sharp, clear, alert awareness, awakened awareness, which shades into Rigpa. Beautiful. Notice how refreshing that alertness is, how clarifying, purifying. Because whatever arises tends to be recognized and to release. Awakened awareness is the great solvent that dissolves all problematic states and contents of mind and heart. And now maintain that alertness and just relax slightly. But maintain the alertness. Good. So you can be really alert. You can have awakened awareness. You can shade into Rigpa and be relaxed at the same time. Beautiful. And now as we come to the end of this sitting, see if you can ease back and keep this awareness with you, this delicious alertness. Hmm. So remember well the key thing we did here that sometimes isn't emphasized much, that our Dzogchen practice is to relax with awareness, but it's not just any awareness. It's not ordinary awareness we're after. We're after awakened awareness, as it's sometimes called, which is very sharp, very alert, hyper aware, clear, lucent. And that can come simply by intention. That is, we sit, we know we're aware, and then we can just, by choice, by intention, become more alert, more aware. And that's the doorway to actual Rigpa, because Rigpa is this pure, hyper alert awareness. So when you practice, I would encourage you as a next step in your practice to do whatever you do to set up your awareness, but then to deliberately move from ordinary awareness into awakened awareness. Okay? And it's a clear distinction. Awakened awareness is sharper, clearer, brighter, more intense. It deepens into it has a sacred sense to it. It's luminous. You can get a palpable feel for that distinction. So we're aiming in this practice not just for ordinary awareness. That's helpful, it's valuable, but we're aiming for awakened awareness. Okay, so take that as one of your goals for practice and experiment with it and see. And notice what happens. You may notice that when you intensify and develop awakened awareness, you're much less likely to get caught in thoughts and images and fantasies. That it's easier to sustain awareness for longer periods. No, it's okay. We all get lost, but awakened awareness is much more able to catch subtle mental phenomena like thoughts. Getting trapped in thoughts has long been one of my main challenges, and I did every trick in the book you can think of. Deliberately kind of stepping back mentally, doing meditations, just looking for thoughts, all of which are valuable, but none have been as valuable as just learning that distinction between awareness and awakened awareness and practicing in awakened awareness. Just makes the recognition of mental phenomena and the capacity not to get hypnotized by them just much more evident. Okay. So maybe we'll come back to that at the end with our questions, but I'd like to introduce another practice at this stage. And it's a practice around service. This is a time, I don't have to tell you that this is a unique time in human history when we're facing novel and global threats. Of course, we're also facing a variety of social challenges as well. And I think all of us are feeling called to contribute in whatever way we can. And as we do so, the question arises, well, how do we integrate that with our spiritual practice? There are several questions that arise, but it's one thing that's valuable to know is that service is kind of a culmination of spiritual life. And across spiritual traditions, there's a recognition that service to others is a practice unto itself. In fact, it's one of the 7 central practices common to the world's spiritual traditions. And I'm not going to go into detail on this. I did a book on this, Essential Spirituality and 7 Central Practices. If you want more detail, you can go there. But for now, the main thing to know is that across the world's great traditions, there's this recognition that service is both a means to awakening and an expression of it. And so service has this unique role, both means and goal. And so for all of us who are not in monasteries, we're naturally called to contribute in whatever ways we can. And so one of the questions that comes up is, well, what can I do? And in the face of the enormity of the threats we face, and the challenges ahead of us, and the sheer amount of suffering that goes with being a human being, and that we see in our friends and community and society and the world, what can one little me do? And that question, so the first question is, what can I do? And the second question is, underlying that is, what's the most strategic thing I can do? And it's important to recognize what kind of questions these are, because there are 2 kinds of questions. There are knowledge questions and wisdom questions. Knowledge questions, well, questions like, is it raining outside? Look out the window, no rain. Question is answered, end of question. But wisdom questions are more like koans. They're questions which don't have a final answer, but which can keep deepening and changing as we deepen and change. And every time we ask a wisdom question, such as what's the most strategic contribution I can make, it has the potential of taking us deeper into the question, deeper into ourselves, and deeper into life. And so these 2 questions, what can I do and what's the most strategic thing I can do, are wisdom questions. And they're questions that will probably be with us and hopefully we'll be asking for the rest of our lives. And they're like all wisdom questions, they're transformative. They have by the very act of asking them and exploring them, they have the capacity for transforming us, for evoking the very qualities of heart and mind and skills and aspirations that we need in order to contribute. So these are psychoactive questions. They act on our psyche and on our hearts. And so this question, what can I do then, is one that's really worth sitting with. And without any expectation that there'll be an immediate answer. It may take months, maybe, maybe even longer, for us to really feel into and come up with what's the unique thing that I, with my unique life and contacts and skills and capacities, what's the unique contribution that I can make? And what's the contribution that I feel called to make? What really calls? What will create joy for me in the process? Because one of the secrets of contribution is it doesn't have to be sacrifice. Ideally, it's an expression of our joy, of our calling. So this first step of sitting with the questions of what's the most strategic thing I can do and what can I do? These are questions, reflections to take as much time as you want with. But then, given we are contemplative practitioners, given that we have made a commitment to this Vajrayana path with its bodhisattvic aspiration, then there are further questions. And one is, and they come out of the recognition that if we look at the state of the world, the state of our society, we recognize that now, for the first time in human history, most of the great threats and challenges we face are actually human caused, which means that at bottom, they are reflections of our own individual and collective psyches. And what we think of as our global problems are actually global symptoms. They're symptoms of our individual and collective immaturities, impurities, foibles, fears. And so, as contemplatives, as meditators, as Vajrayana practitioners, we recognize that to be most effective, we need not only to work to do things like end conflict and oppression and reduce the amount of hunger and weapons in the world, but we also need to work on the underlying psychological and spiritual roots within us and between us. So as contemplatives, then, we see that ideally we would work both in the outer world to deal with the very real problems, but we would also work on the inner world and the intersubjective worlds to reduce the source of these problems. And so we see that the ideal would be a twofold approach or a multifold approach. We would work in the world to whatever our chosen avenue may be, whether it's bringing food to people or pounding the streets or whatever it is. We work in the world, but we also work on ourselves to make ourselves more effective instruments of service. And we also work in the world to try to reduce the psychological and spiritual roots of these crises. And so it'd be wonderful if there was a practice by which we could do all these things. And there is, fortunately. And wise people across traditions have looked at how best to do this. And it's the art of what we can call sacred service. And so with sacred service, we're working to do multiple things simultaneously. We're working to address both the problems and their many causes, including the causes within us. And to do this, we need to hone ourselves and our skills to learn and to grow and to develop our activist skills. So how do we bring all these together? Well, that's where sacred service comes in. And there are 8 steps we can break sacred service down into. The first one is before beginning any major activity, anything you're doing, before you start, say, work in the morning, or go to your desk, or begin any project, stop, take a moment. Don't just jump in, stop. Give yourself the gift of a moment to become present and to reflect on what you're going to do and why. And when you're stopped, the second step is to offer this to a higher source, offer your activity to a higher source. And traditionally that was, in many traditions, God or Brahman, but it can be to any transpersonal source or purpose larger than one's ego. So one can do it, okay, I offer this writing or this project, this work, for the welfare and awakening of all. Okay. I think I'm going to step back and just give a context, because I am realizing as I launch into the 8 steps that it might be a little overwhelming. So I'm just going to say that in that sometimes these are broken down into 3 main steps. The 3 main steps of sacred service are: first, to offer what we're doing to a higher transpersonal source or purpose. Second, to do your work as impeccably as possible. And third, and it's this third simultaneous activity which makes sacred service such a knife-edge practice. While we're doing what we can as impeccably and fully and full on as we can, simultaneously letting go attachment to the outcome. And it's this letting go attachment to the outcome that strips away the egoic motivation, that releases us from doing it to look good or to make things turn out the way I think they should. And that can be a real challenge when you're working, for example, to, say, reduce nuclear weapons and the threat of human extinction. But we've all known social activists who've ended up burnt out. And this sacred service is a practice which reduces the possibility of burnout, because burnout comes from being attached to a particular outcome and not seeing it happen. And the antidote, or not even the antidote, but the prevention, the prophylaxis for burnout, is to release attachment to the outcome, which is a powerful practice unto itself. So those are the 3 core practices of sacred service. Now to step into a little more detail. So before you begin your service, before you begin that phone call, before you start writing or speaking, take a moment. Stop. Set an aspiration. That is, offer what you're doing to a transpersonal source or purpose. Then attempt to do what your service as impeccably as you can, wholeheartedly, skillfully, effectively. Okay. Then, 4th step, be aware. Bring as much awareness as you possibly can to your activity, what you're doing, to how you're doing it, to what's going on in the environment around you, to how people are reacting, to how you're reacting, because there'll be a whole flow of inner experiences. So be aware. Now, ideally, we would bring awakened awareness to this activity. And that's what we're aiming for. But bring as much awareness as you can. Sometimes we'll get lost. Sometimes it'll be a kind of half awareness. But when we can, bring awakened awareness, a full alertness to what you're doing. So first step, stop. Give yourself a moment, take a few breaths. Second, offer the activity. Third step, do your work impeccably. Fourth, be as aware as you can of the process. And then fifth, explore and work with any reactions that arise. Inevitably, as we do something we're passionately committed to, there'll be a flow of emotional reactions and hopes and fears and expectations. There'll be reactions to other people. Other people will have their reactions. You'll have your reactions to them. And it can go, and our job is to explore the fullness of the reactions in ourselves and around us, just to notice them. Bring as much awareness as you can to them. And some of the time there'll be painful emotions, like for example, fear that it's not going to work, or embarrassment that I'm not looking good, or getting angry with people who stand in the way. And these are all feedback. It's not quite right to call them negative emotions, but painful, problematic emotions are feedback. It's like when we hurt the body, we feel pain. Pain is feedback. It's saying, pay attention to this part of this part of the body. It needs attention and healing. It's the same with the psyche, with the mind. When there are painful emotions, it's a call to pay attention. And the beautiful thing about awareness is that awareness in and of itself is healing. So that if we simply allow ourselves, and you know this from your own experience of meditation, when we sit and we simply allow painful emotions to arise in awareness and with awareness, they tend to release and unravel and dissolve of themselves. So to whatever extent we can, we work with painful emotions in a couple of ways. One is their feedback. So, okay, they're telling us we're attached to something. Okay, what am I attached to? Oh, I'm attached to looking good. Oh, I'm really attached to having this happen the way I want it to. I'm really attached to this person getting out of my way and following instructions. Okay, so it's an opportunity to just relax and release these, to allow the attachment to dissolve. So we learn and we release with this fifth step of exploring our reactions. And then the sixth step is to release attachment to the outcome. And it's this practice, which is the knife edge one. This is the specific practice which undercuts the egocentricity of our project and our work and our service. Because now it's no longer about what I think should happen. Yes, we work as impeccably as we can to fulfill the aspiration, and the world doesn't always match up to the way we think it should be. And so we release attachment to the way it should be. It doesn't mean we stop trying to work to make things turn out as we hope they should be. But that's very different. We can keep working as wholeheartedly as possible for our goal, for our aspiration, and let go attachment to the way it turns out at the same time. In fact, we need to do both. That's the knife edge practice. That's what undercuts egocentricity. That's what makes it a really profound spiritual practice. Now, good-hearted people sometimes worry that if they let go their attachment to things turning out well, they won't be motivated. But that's just a lack of self-trust. That's just saying I can't trust myself to do what's right if I'm not attached. And actually, as we let go of the attachment, we discover that we can trust ourselves. Okay. Seventh step. At the end, stop again. Stop and reflect. Stop and reflect and learn. Take some time after any major activity to give yourself a chance to learn from it. What happened here? What did I do? What worked? What didn't work? What could I do more of? What should I be doing less of? How could I do it different and better? Where did I get caught? What did I do to allow myself to release those traps? What really worked? This is what turns activity into a learning experience and growth experience. And then finally, the eighth step is offer the benefits of your activity for the welfare and awakening of all. This is something we do with each practice session. We offer the benefits. And it's done based on a very profound understanding of the way the mind works. And what's crucial to know is that what we intend for others, we tend to experience ourselves. If we intend, if we desire to hurt people, we contract, we get angry, we reinforce the fear out of which the attack is coming. So we ourselves get hurt by the intention to hurt others. But also when we intend well-being for others, if you check in at that moment, what you'll find is the mind and heart are filled with motives such as generosity and contribution, and by emotions such as compassion and care and love. And we reinforce those. So in offering whatever benefits have come from our activity, from our service, we actually strengthen positive qualities within ourselves. It's a win-win, and it's an example of the fact that service is not, as our culture assumes, self-sacrifice. Awake service is enlightened self-interest. This service is a way, and all virtues actually, but service is enlightened self-interest. As the Dalai Lama says, if you're just trying to make yourself happy, you got one chance. If you're trying to make 7 billion people happy, you got 7 billion chances. Go with the odds. Yeah. So those are the steps. First, we stop before any major activity. We offer it to a higher purpose or source. We do our work as impeccably as we can. Fourth step, we bring as much awareness as we possibly can to it. Fifth, we explore our reactions and all the psychological stuff that comes up. We explore other people's reactions. We release attachment to the outcome. We recognize painful emotions as feedback about attachments and see if we can let them go. And after the activity is complete, we stop and reflect and learn. And then finally, we offer whatever benefits have accrued to the welfare and awakening of all. And this sacred service is the practice by which we go into ourselves to go more effectively out into the world, and we go out into the world in order to go deeper into ourselves. And we keep that cycle going. We continue this process of learning and awakening and serving until they become spontaneous expressions of our true nature. And at that stage, the universe learns and awakens and serves itself through us. So that's the practice of sacred service, very briefly described. If you want to go more detailed descriptions of it, I think there's a talk I've given on, a longer talk I've given on this on the web from the Integral European Conference. It's also in the book I mentioned, Essential Spirituality, 7 Central Practices. But this is the basis for combining so much of what we're doing. Our service in the world, our spiritual practice, our meditation, and for being as effective as we possibly can, making ourselves ever more effective instruments for the welfare and awakening of all, which is the bodhisattvic aspiration, which is the most fulfilling thing a human being can do and the best thing one can do with a life. So said numerous sages from multiple traditions and multiple cultures over a lot of centuries. So now I'm just going to invite you to do a guided reflection. I'm going to walk you through something. So I'd like you to think of a contribution you make, some work you'd like to do in the world. And I invite you to see yourself about to begin that work, about to make your contribution. And see yourself about to do that, and give yourself, as you're visualizing yourself doing that, just stop for a moment and offer that work to a higher purpose or source. So offer it. And now see yourself doing that activity as impeccably as possible. And as you're doing it, being as aware as possible, bringing awakened awareness to everything you're doing. And using that awareness that you're bringing to your work, to your contribution, to just notice what's going on around you and what's going on within you. And notice yourself if there are any painful emotions that arise, fear, anger, embarrassment, worry. Just see yourself allowing these to rise into awareness, greeting them lovingly, recognizing that they're pointing to underlying attachments. Thanking them and letting them go. And as you do your sacred service as impeccably as you can, with as much awareness as you can, release attachment to it having to turn out the way you think it should. And recognize you're in control of the work. You're not really in control of how it turns out. You can nudge things, but you can't control the world. And now stop. After having done that activity, take a moment to reflect on it, on this visualization, on this work. What have you learned from doing this? What have you learned? What could you do differently in future? Do more effectively, more joyfully? And take a moment to offer the benefits of everything you've done. Offer these benefits to the welfare and awakening of all. And take a moment to just feel joy and satisfaction at the pure-hearted, aspiration with which you've approached and done this work, the awareness you've brought to it, the way you've attempted to work with whatever arose, the freedom that comes from releasing attachments to the outcome, the sense of relaxation and ease that comes from not having to have things turn out the way you think they should. The sense of flow with what is, and the satisfaction and delight that comes from offering what you have, what you've gained for the welfare and awakening of all. So we covered a lot today. We started by doing a sitting practice and introduced the intensification of awareness, the shift from ordinary awareness to awakened awareness, which is a crucial aspect of practice, which doesn't get enough press. Then we explored how we can best respond to the call to service, and talked about the art of sacred service, by which we can integrate our inner work and our outer work, our social and our spiritual lives. And by integrating them, making ourselves ever more effective instruments of service and better able to contribute and help and heal in whatever ways we can. We also discussed finding what is our strategic contribution. So we covered a lot. We have just a few minutes if anyone would like to comment or question.
Thank you, Lama. That was really great, really informative. We have about 4 minutes left, so maybe we can get 1 or 2 questions in. We'll start with a pretty short question here. How does the energy of awareness and hyper-awareness compare to the energy of vigilance? And this is from David.
Let's see. Vigilance is, well, let's see, I guess we'd need, if we had more time, we'd need to find out what, discuss the use of terms. So vigilance is usually used for directing attention and working with the mind, what in Tibetan is called sem. With awareness, we're working with that which is behind the psyche, the mental activity of attention and cognition and so and thinking and so forth. So awareness is, in some ways they're related, but this is not intensifying concentration or the mind activity itself. It's resting in that which is prior to or behind mind, that's awareness, and intensifying that.
Okay, thank you. 2 minutes left. Maybe we have time for one more. This is from Barbara. She says she's a beginner in this style, but has a meditation practice. And so is the point of this to recognize that the senses are apart from the meditator, like the sound of the air conditioner is not me, that the back of the sofa is not me, until that awareness is carried over throughout one's day?
Let's see, well, to keep it very simple, the goal is to bring as much awareness as we can to each moment and to life. And usually as we start practicing, we realize that we've been kind of sleepwalking through life. We've been, most of the time, we've been lost in thoughts and fantasies and images and refighting yesterday's argument and planning tomorrow's dinner, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're not around most of the time. So this is a practice for bringing ourselves fully to each moment and to life with as much awareness as we can. So let's see. Yeah, that's probably do it. And let's see, I saw someone asking, asking where was the talk on sacred service. It was done at the Integral European Conference in 2018, and it's still up on their website, Integral European Conference. And I forget the title of the talk, but it was a little more detailed than this. And there's also more detail in the book I mentioned, Essential Spirituality. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Lama. That's all we have time for today, but that was a really great talk. We really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen for
and it'd be nice to just have a moment to offer the benefits.
Oh yes, please.
So as we've been talking about, may all that we've enjoyed and explored and learned and seen and heard and reflected on, all the insights we've had, may all of them serve our welfare and awakening, and may we become ever more effective instruments for the welfare and awakening of all.
Thank you so much, Lama. As you see on the screen, we do have the live virtual spring meditation retreat coming up in March. It'll be with a special guest, Krishna Das. And as always, please consider donating to the Dzogchen Center to keep Lama's mission of transmission alive, and also consider becoming a member. We have a special member event coming this Thursday. It's a member-only event, so please check that out on the website. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.